Good day, everyone. Today, we are going to present some robbery cases that occurred here in the Philippines. The first case that we are going to report is People of the Philippines versus Luther Sabado, Saturnino Sabado, and Hospicio Haruta. Now let's go to the facts of the case. Luther Sabado, with intent to gain and grave abuse of trust and in conspiracy with accused Saturnino El Sabado and Hospicio M. Haruta, willfully, unlawfully, and feloniously take, steal, and carry away an assorted of jewelry and cellular phones worth 500,000 pesos. Defense of the accused. Luther Sabado, he denied any participation in the crime and consistently maintained that he was not a conspirator but rather a victim of the incident. While the defense of the state mainly theory was that Luther Sabado actively participated in the crime by falsificating access to the pawn shop for his co-conspirators. However, the Supreme Court affirmed the conviction of Luther Sabado for qualified theft. These are the main reasons why he was found guilty. Elements of qualified theft were proven, qualified by grave abuse of confidence. Now let us proceed to the next case. Edwin Del Rosario versus People of the Philippines. On January 30, 2012 in Davao City, Edwin Del Rosario and Roxanne Constancio boarded a jeepney. Del Rosario signaled Roxanne, who then snatched Charlotte Casiano's gold necklace worth 18,000 pesos. Both pled. Roxanne was arrested and pointed to Del Rosario, who was later identified by the victim and her companion. Del Rosario denied involvement, claiming alibi. The regional trial court convicted him of robbery. The Court of Appeals affirmed. Defense of the accused. Del Rosario denied crime, claimed alibi, and questioned the reliability of witness identification, while the defense of the state relied on the positive identification of the victim and her companion, proving Del Rosario's conspiracy with Roxanne in committing the crime. The Supreme Court affirmed Del Rosario's guilt but reclassified the crime from robbery to theft, as no violence or intimidation was used. He was sentenced to 6 months of arresto mayor. People of the Philippines versus Henry Villanueva. On August 5, 1986 in Gapan, Nueva Ecija, Emilio Marcelo was robbed and killed inside his home. Stolen items were TV, watch, ring, and 110 pesos cash. In total, it was 18,000 pesos. Suspects were Henry June Villanueva, Robert Manuel, and Ben Ginko. Marcelo was stabbed multiple times with bladed instruments. Stolen TV and ring later recovered in Kawayan, Isabela, after Villanueva pointed them out. Both Villanueva and Manuel gave sworn statements. Medical legal confirmed death from stab wounds. Defense of the accused. He denied conspiracy, claimed alibi, and argued his confession was forced. He also insisted he did not stab the victim. Defense of the state. Proved conspiracy through sworn confessions, recovery of stolen items, and testimonies. His alibi was weak and confession was voluntary with counsel present. The Supreme Court found Henry Villanueva guilty of robbery with homicide. It was proved conspiracy was established, making Villanueva liable even if he did not stab the victim. His alibi was unproven and his confession valid. The penalty was reclusion perpetua. Civil indemnity increased to 50,000 pesos. People of the Philippines versus Rogelio Cobab. On October 12, 1988, a group of armed men boarded a passenger jeepney. While the jeepney was in transit, one of the men declared a holdup. The robbers simultaneously took personal belongings including cash and jewelry from the multiple passengers. During the robbery, Venancio Estacio, one of the passengers, was stabbed to death when he tried to resist within the chaos of the event. Defense of the accused. They denied involvement using alibi and questioned the reliability of eyewitness identification, claiming that chaos in the jeepney made it hard to recognize the culprits. Defense of the state. The prosecution presented credible eyewitnesses who clearly identified the accused and proved all elements of the crime. It is stressed that under conspiracy, all participants are equally liable regardless of who inflicted that fatal wound. Court ruling. The Supreme Court affirmed the conviction of the accused for robbery with homicide under Article 941 of the revised Penal Code. It ruled that all the elements of the crime were clearly proven. The court held that eyewitness identification was credible and outweighed the weak defense of alibi. Since the accused acted together in a coordinated manner, conspiracy was established, making them equally liable for both the robbery and the homicide. Roel Casilac versus People of the Philippines. While the victim was walking home, the accused, Roel C. Casilac, blocked his path, pointed a knife, and took his cell phone. This act fulfills the elements of robbery under Article 295 in the revised Penal Code. The property involved was the victim's cell phone. It was unlawfully taken without his consent. The accused intended to gain as shown by the fleeing with it, and the taking was accomplished through intimidation with a deadly weapon. Defense of the accused. Roel C. Casilac denied committing robbery and argued that the prosecution's evidence was weak. He questioned the credibility of the victim's testimony, pointing to supposed inconsistencies and claiming that mere identification was not sufficient to prove guilt beyond reasonable doubt. He insisted that the state failed to establish unlawful taking and intent to gain. Defense of the state. The prosecution maintained that the victim positively identified Casilac as the person who pointed a knife at him, took his cell phone, and fled. The state argued that the victim's testimony was clear, credible, and consistent, and when coupled with the circumstances of the incident, sufficiently proved all the elements of robbery under the revised Penal Code. The Supreme Court affirmed the conviction for robbery under Article 293 of the revised Penal Code. He was found guilty beyond reasonable doubt because the victim gave a clear, categorical, and credible testimony identifying Casilac as the robber. The taking of the cell phone was proven to be without consent. The use of a knife for intimidation established the element of force or intimidation. The accused intent to gain was evident when he fled with the cell phone. That is all, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you learned something about our report.